Hi, Julia.
Hi, Anna. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's so good to see you.
Oh, your hair has gotten lighter since I saw you last time. It looks wonderful.
Thank you.
I was
Yeah, I
so
got
happy
it.
to see you on the roster.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I can finally do one.
Yay! I'm so glad
Yeah,
that it worked out.
yeah, it's so good to
Um,
be back
it's
again.
been entirely too long. I'm
Yes.
gonna just invite a couple more people into the waiting room. Oh, hey, John. How you doing?
Good morning. How we
Good
doing?
morning. Great. How are you?
All right.
Yeah. How's the Cali weather today?
It's a little May gray. That's
Yeah.
usually what we have around now. Yeah. How about you?
It
Warm
is
up?
hot.
Is
It's
it?
just varying shades of hellish weather around here.
Oh,
Where
I'm
we
sorry.
we live inside right now. But my husband's actually on his way to your side of the country right now, so he's excited for a little bit of a break from it.
Oh, business.
Actually, so my stepdaughter goes to Cal Poly.
Hmm.
So he's going to see her. She's doing a summer abroad, so this is his last chance to see her for several months. But she's going
Oh, nice.
off to Paris. I'm like, how do these kids have these amazing opportunities? I mean, I would have just at her age, that would have just been I would never
Yeah.
have imagined that happening. So I'm so glad that they have opportunities that I didn't get to when I was younger.
Yeah, super cool. Although
Yeah.
right now to be any place that's not home, with the pandemic is not anything I'm too
Yeah.
thrilled about. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
No, that's awesome.
Definitely it's hard
Yeah.
prioritizing these days and trying to figure out,
I
a
wish her
good
safe
life
travels
plan.
and a fun time. That's an awesome experience.
Yeah, we're excited for her. Well, welcome everybody. I think we've got we've got the family here. Kate, Anna, Catherine, welcome. We'll give everybody else just a couple moments to pop in. I'll pull up my Zoom slides for the day. But in the meantime, let's pull up the chat box. And I'd like everybody today to write down in the chat box the sound of home. What is the sound of home? We've got some great responses. So we've got some natural sounds, raindrops on the roof, wind chimes on the patio, mom playing Enya on Sundays. That one's mine. Morning blackbird song, beautiful. Kate, absence. That's a loud word. And chatting between Anna and Catherine. I can hear you guys chatting already. Beautiful. I love this question so much. Actually, it's one of my favorite questions at parties where the ice still needs to be broken because you can learn so much about somebody based on what the sound of home is for them. I think it tells you a little bit about what's important to them or just where they come from. To know somebody's come from is really important. We're going to be talking a lot about that today. I don't feel like I can jump right in without acknowledging the events of the week. The massacre in Uvalde happened just a couple hours away from my hometown in Austin, and it's weighing really heavy on my heart today. So it feels a little bit tone deaf to jump into a poem about homecoming and about identity and about self, so much so that I started to think this morning, should we change our text today? Should we explore something that's maybe a little bit more pertinent to what has happened this week? And I stopped myself for a couple of reasons. First, because I think having a conversation about our come-froms, about our home places, about our identities, invites us naturally to wonder about our relationships with our larger communities and what actions we can take in a larger community, because identity is not something that is isolated from the world. We are shaped by our larger worlds, and in turn, we shape the world. So I think we're going to dive into a little bit of philosophy today. I'd love to talk about a little bit about Judith Butler and what she calls the scene of address, so that we can explore this self-community relationship, and so that we can begin to wonder about how that promotes an ethic of action. And secondly, I thought today that we could focus a little bit more on the writing portion. I know we typically really dive into the close reading. We spend the bulk of our time talking about the poem and about close reading. Today, I thought we'd spend more of our time really diving into the creative work, because just selfishly, for me personally, that is cathartic. That is a place where healing happens for me. So just having a space where we can sit down, we can write, and we can share together. I'm hoping whether we end up talking about gun violence or gun control or whatever comes out today, or whether we just talk about our homes and what feels good to us, that somehow it'll feel nurturing and grounding and inspiring, no matter where you are emotionally this week. So before we get started, we've got a couple new messages. Thank you guys so much. All right, I'm just going to double check and make sure I'm not missing anybody and participants waiting in the waiting room. Nope. Okay, so we're going to close the classroom. Great. All right, so I'll skip the whole what narrative medicine is. Everybody here knows that spiel, but I will say, we're going to start off just by talking a little bit about Judith Butler, who is a philosopher whose ideas are very important to narrative medicine and narrative work. Judith Butler argues that identity is not something that just bubbles up out of us independently of what is happening in the world. They. Judith Butler's pronouns now are them and they. They argue that identity it's not something we're born with. It's not Catherine-ness or John-ness, independent of the world. It is more like a conversation between ourselves and the world. They take this concept of being, something that postmodern philosophy, or something that modern philosophy is largely considered pure and a philosophical concept, something that is, something that is essentialized. And they show how being is actually not pure. It's something that's always muddied by context, always muddied by where we are in place and time. It's continuously steeped in history, culture, and relationships, so steeped in it that we don't even see these insidious ways that we are shaped by culture. I think we can all think of ways that our own personal identities have been shaped in response to larger cultural norms and cultural events. Butler calls this the scene of address, or the socio-historical stage where we emerge in conversation with our world. Now, to be clear, Butler is not saying that you can't rebel against your scene of address. Far from that, they're saying that it's precisely in the rebellion against social norms that we actually start to develop what we see as our identities. But we need something to push against, right? Like there's always, identity is always a reaction, always a conversation. And we can't avoid having this conversation with culture, especially if what we're saying to the larger cultural norm is no. So from an ethical point of view, it becomes so important for us to acknowledge our own unique scenes of address so that we can better understand the lens through which we see the world. And just like, you know, if you have a pair of glasses that you've been wearing forever, you stop seeing the spots on the glasses where they're a little bit dirty. It's important for us from time to time to take the glasses off, to examine them as best we can, to recognize that we'll never be able to completely remove them and see our lenses perfectly, but also to keep trying, to keep aiming for that self-awareness, to know that we'll never be objective, but we can try our best to see more clearly where we in turn come from. And as importantly, so that we can begin to cultivate that kind of humility and wonder and wisdom that comes from knowing ourselves more fully. So this month's text, we're going to be looking at what I'm going to call a homecoming poem. And it's by this wonderful poet. Oh, we just had another participant ask to be let in. I'm going to go ahead and let Miriam in. Hi there, Miriam. Welcome. Whenever you hop in, I'm going to ask you to unmute and just say hi to the group, because this is the first time I'm getting to meet you. Hi, welcome. If you're comfortable with it, you're welcome to turn on your video screen and say hi to folks. Thank you. Perfect. Just to catch you up, we were talking a little bit about identity and its relationship between ourselves and culture, and how identity isn't something essentialized that bubbles up inside of us without some sort of reaction with the world, right? There's always we are not an island. We're always in conversation with the world. The poem we're going to be looking at today is by a poet named George Lyon. And it's a homecoming poem. It's a poem about where George Lyon comes from. We're going to be doing our own homecoming poems today, really examining where we come from so that we can take stock of how that influences the way that we interact with the world as well. Just a little background on what we've covered so far. You can also pull up your chat box. We started off the class by writing down the sound of home. So you're welcome to do that as well if you'd like, while we move on and talk a little bit about George Lyon. Oh, oops. All right, so George Lyon was born in 1949. She is an American author from Kentucky who has published in many genres, including picture books, poetry, juvenile novels, and articles. Lyon was born in Harlan, which is a coal mining town in southeastern Kentucky. Her books frequently take place in Appalachia. Lyon also served as Kentucky Poet Laureate in 2015. Here's a note from Lyon herself, which I found on her website, which I will include in the chat box in just a moment when I have time to put it in there. Her website, I think it's actually georgellalyon.com. Her website is actually a really welcoming website. She writes directly to readers and writers and invites us to take part in whatever she's up to. She says, "Welcome, world weavers. Though I write in many forms, I am first of all a poet, which means my job is to see and sing the connections between things. The spider's web is a delicious image for this and for the wonder of something newly made from old patterns, like the sentences writers spin each day. The strength of my web comes from family, friends, words, music, dreams, mountains, and the joy of making. Think about the life you are spinning and how you could write about its different strands." We're going to let that be our call to action today. Normally, Miriam, we spend a lot of time diving into a close reading of a poem. We're going to be doing a little bit of that today, but we're going to shorten it more than we usually do so that we can actually respond to Lyon's call to action and do a little bit more of our writing and sharing and examining of our own lives. This is a slide of N.C. Escher that I was supposed to pull up before the slide of George Lyon that describes this conversation that we were talking about between selves and communities, how one informs and shapes the other. I think this is a great visual aid for this. This comes from N.C. Escher, who's Famous for his drawings of mind-bending, almost like Zen koans in visual form. You can see one hand is drawing the other hand so that they are drawing each other in perpetuity. And I think this is a great visual image that we can kind of channel today as we start to wonder about the ways our own homes, our own scenes of address inform who we are, and just as we in turn inform our own scenes of address. So now let's take a look at George Ella Lyon's poem together, Where I'm From. Can I ask for a volunteer to read this poem aloud? You can just raise your hand. Oh, wonderful, Anna. So Anna, before you get started, I should probably put myself on mute. In case you don't know me, I have 5 dogs, so they're going a little crazy in the background. I hope that they're not too loud for us. Before you get started, Anna, I'm going to invite everybody for this first read through. You can close your eyes or you can just follow the poem. Don't worry about writing anything down. Just kind of let it wash over you without too much thought going on this first read through. Go ahead, Anna.
Okay. Where I'm from. I am from clothespins, from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I am from the dirt under the black porch. Black, glistening, it tasted like beets. I am from the forsythia bush, the Dutch elm whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. I am from fudge and eyeglasses, from Imogene and Alifair. I'm from the know-it-alls and the pass-it-ons, from perk up and pipe down. I'm from he restoreth my soul with a cotton ball lamb. And 10 verses I can say myself. I'm from Aretmus and Billy's branch, fried corn and strong coffee, from the finger my grandfather lost to the auger, to the eye my father shut to keep his sight. Under my bed was a dress box spilling old pictures, a sift of lost faces to drift beneath my dreams. I am from those moments, snapped before I budded, a leaf fall from the family tree.
Beautiful, Anna, thank you. I'm going to ask for another volunteer to read it a second time. Just raise your hand. Oh, wonderful, Miriam. I was hoping it would be you. So before Miriam starts reading, this time we're going to pull out a piece of paper, or you can just use your chat box as your note station if you like. And we're just going to write down any words or phrases that immediately call out to us that we want to examine further together as a group. Miriam, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Where I'm from. I am from clothespins, from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I am from the dirt under the black porch, black, glistening it tasted like beets. I am for the forsythia bush, the Dutch elm whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. I'm from fudge and eyeglasses, from Imogene and Alifair. I'm from the know-it-alls and the pass-it-ons, from perk up and pipe down. I'm from he restoreth my soul with the cotton ball lamb. And 10 verses I can say myself. I'm from Arimathemus and Billy's branch, fried corn and strong coffee. From the finger my grandfather lost to the ogre, from the eye my father shut to keep his sight. Under my bed was a dress box spilling old pictures, a sift of lost faces to drift beneath my dreams. I am from those moments, snapped before I budded, leaf fall from the family tree. Oh, that's lovely.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Miriam. That was a great reading. So whenever you get a moment, just pop something in the chat box that interested you. Miriam writes the sound, oh, I'm sorry, returning to the sound of homes, quiet with the gentle sounds of birds, dogs, and kind voices. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. as you guys are popping things into the chat box, little words and phrases that interest you, maybe we can just begin with a discussion about this speaker. Who is this speaker? What can we tell about him or her, given the information they provide? And you can just, since we have a small group again today, you can just speak it out loud instead of raising a hand or putting it in the chat box. Maybe a more direct question is, how old is this speaker? How can you tell? Miriam says a child. How do you know it's a child?
Getting a lot of instruction. Pipe, sorry, she's an adult. Maybe she's an adult now, remembering the impact of her childhood.
Ooh, that's interesting. Where do you see that?
Well, I can hear teachers' voices or an adult's voice, perk up, pipe down,
Yeah.
quite authoritarian.
What cued you into the fact that this is an adult speaking now about a childhood?
Well, it's just so diverse. There's so much. She's talking about such a breadth of experience that it. But the voices seem to have been very strong and very influential. So I think because it's such a breadth, and there's a sift of lost faces, so there's experiences that are in the past.
Yes. Yeah. So we get an idea, especially in that last stanza.
Oh,
that these are old.
Mentioned that as well, actually. Sorry. Yeah. That the lost faces. Yeah.
A sift of lost faces. Yeah. Something from the past returning. Yeah, very interesting. What else cues us into the childhood that this adult is looking back now and examining? How do we know it's a childhood? Go for it, Kate.
It's an interesting, it toggles between child and adult, I think, for me, past and present. In this, at the end of the second verse, 10 verses I can say myself, that seems just full of the pride that a child would have. 10 verses, and it's present tense, I can say them myself. But in the last verse, it's past tense. Under my bed was a dress box spilling old pictures, which gives us that feeling of retrospective. So even though the first line, I am from clothespins, could be a present time narrator looking back, could also be a child narrator, except it's pretty retrospective, that first verse. And I think also it tasted like beets.
Yes.
Who gets down on their hands and knees and I don't know what she's doing there, licking the porch, picking something up that spilled, and that seems like that's a very interesting detail.
I agree. Only a child would know what that dirt tastes like. Or a very interesting adult. Yeah, I like that. I like that there's a both and here, that it's kind of both child and adult, or a toggling between the two. John, did you have an idea? I thought I saw one percolating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of drawn to the second to last line. I'm from those moments snapped before I budded. So that kind of says to me that she's looking back, pre-adolescence, pre-adulthood, right? I mean, that was just my quick thought. The words leaf fall from the family tree really interests me, though.
Yes, let's talk about it. What interests you about those words?
I mean, that's just full of I mean, from how you look at it, the way that strikes me is the actual words connotation, perhaps that I'm no longer part of the family tree.
Hmm.
Leaf fall. I mean, that kind of, I don't like to read into anything too much, but that kind of says to me, I mean, the author is saying leaf fall, disconnected, right? I mean, dropped off. I'm curious to hear what
Ah,
other people think about that.
me
Because I
too.
mean, it doesn't say a leaf on the family tree or a new leaf on the family tree. It says leaf fall. Interesting, right?
Great observation.
Hmm.
I'd love to hear other people's thoughts here too. What do you think about leaf fall?
In a way, I think I wrote that down as well because I thought it was interesting. And even the whole snapped before I budded kind of sounds like it was broken off,
Hmm.
which kind of goes along with it a little bit, maybe. But I'm from those moments, or it could be the photographs, taking a snap of the photographs. I mean, it could be,
Both,
it could be both.
yeah, because it's actually in between the two. Like, what are those dashes called? Dashes.
Dashes.
Yeah. So like it's the dash in between two contexts. So it kind of belongs to both or on its own. It could be to do with the following thing or the previous thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you say that one more time, Anna?
Um,
Sorry.
me or mum?
No, you. I'm sorry. The about the what's in between the hyphens and where that
Oh yeah.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying. I mean, I was kind of following on from what Mum was saying about like how nature, how like the natural snapping of nature, buds, leaves, branches, but also snapping from photographs and things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's smack bang in the middle of both of those meanings. But
Mm-hmm.
it's one, and it depends on how you look at it, I guess, and focus in on it.
Oh, yeah.
It
And
belong, yeah.
it makes me think too of how maybe these things are similar, that how taking just one snapshot, just one glimpse of a childhood without all of what looks to me like many, many glimpses, but just this one glimpse can actually be a kind of breaking off from like a whole.
No,
Makes me wonder how they're similar.
can't be undone.
Yeah, very interesting. Just to further complicate this question, where else do you see a tree in the poem? And do you think the two images of trees?
Is it the Dutch elm?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
let's look at
I
that
love
line.
that
I
line.
love that.
I think it's
Long
beautiful. His long limbs I remember as if they were my own.
Mm.
But they're long gone, so they're
Mm.
gone as well.
limbs. Yeah, it could be the same tree.
Sorry.
Yeah. How is this tree like the family tree in the last stanza, or different?
And perhaps another lost appendage.
Mm.
I suppose when
Mentioned.
you're, yeah. Sorry, John.
Oh no, I was just thinking that not only did the Dutch elm have some long gone limbs, but grandpa's finger is gone also.
Okay, this is such a good point. We have a list of things that help us understand where the speaker's from. One section, or I guess one umbrella category of things on this list, are things that are lost.
Yeah.
Right? What all is lost in this poem? Let's make a list of those things. What all is lost?
The Dutch elm.
The elm, yeah, the Dutch elm.
The faces.
Faces.
The finger, the eye, well, may not be gone.
The eye and the finger. Literal body parts.
The moments.
Moments.
Just gonna say that, Catherine. Nice.
Sums up, yeah.
No, that was awesome. That was awesome.
What
That
else?
kind of
Okay.
struck me, Catherine, when you said earlier, snap before I budded. That was huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
I suppose it's really kind of timely, I suppose, this kind of a poem for me in particular, and maybe Anna as well, because we've been thinking, I've been thinking a lot about family and
Oh, yeah.
family tree, and of my own family, and and seeing their kind of little blind spots more recently, and looking at my own upbringing and how it's colored by my own experience, and then how their how their parenting is colored by their own experiences, as everybody knows. But it's just been kind of interesting. So
Yeah, it has this.
it has a resonance with me, this particular poem.
You are putting into words my brain over the past couple of weeks. I'm in that same boat right now too. And you use such a great word, blind spots.
Mm.
And I want us to look at that line, to the eye my father shut to keep his sight.
Yes.
What do you make of that line?
That seems pretty
Pertinent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kate,
I
go
have
for
a
it.
very, I have a very personal connection to that because my father was a drinker, and when he drank past a certain point, he had to hold one eye shut in order to be able to stabilize his vision with the other eye because he was seeing double. So I'm working very hard not to bring that association into this poem, but I'm trying to imagine why else
Yeah.
a father would, why this person would shut his eye to keep his sight.
No pun intended. I can't unsee that now. Like I wonder if it is a projection onto the poem, or if there is something, a similar experience there. Does anybody see a different way to read this?
So for me, I see like it's like the father almost shut out his eyes to some of the things that were maybe issues, so that he could keep and stay in the space, perhaps. I read a lot of like connection and disconnection in the poem.
Yes.
It's like ways which it's connection, like I think like the forefronting like the chemicals, like the Clorox and carbon tetrachloride before getting into the nature. It's just like, really, because chemicals and nature, like just the way they interact.
Oh yeah. Oh, keep going. Keep going. How do they interact?
Well, like because chemicals are toxic for the environment and nature, and it's like, and then all these nature pieces, like they're all lost some way, or like the people, like how has this been connected, like, and what roles do like the snapping I read was like quite disruptive. So it's like when I read it as I was speaking, like the snap before I budded, it was like maybe there was some disconnection before she was like fully grown from her family, or in the way she connects with her family.
I love that. I just want to welcome really quickly Catalina to the room. I hope you weren't waiting too long in the waiting room, Catalina. Welcome. We are just diving into Where I'm From by a poet named Lyon. And Anna, just I'll give you a moment to read through the poem on your own, but what we were looking at just now is the relationship between cleaning chemicals and nature, and how the two interact. Anna was saying that these chemicals, Clorox and carbon tetrachloride, have a kind of antagonistic relationship with this nature, the dirt under the back porch and the forsythia bush and the Dutch elm. Does anybody else have any other ideas about this relationship between cleaning products and nature? What that might mean to you or to the poem?
I see clothespins are such a simple, practical way to get the job done. And I see them, I see individual set of arms reaching up to hang the laundry. But then Clorox and carbon tetrachloride, I didn't know what carbon tetrachloride was, so I just looked it up. That's an industrial chemical. So just even in those first two lines, I'm seeing, how can I say, kind of, industry, the monolith of industry against. I'm reading poverty in that first line. I mean, it's of an era. It might not necessarily designate poverty, but and then I think the Dutch elm whose long gone limbs. It's not like almost like whether the Dutch elm itself is physically gone to disease or cut down, whatever, or whether it's just gone because it's from the past and the child is no longer climbing it. It exists in memory only. Still, there seems to be a gap. That's as far as I can get right now.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that idea. I hear also, I am from work. I am from people of work. And maybe this moment under the porch, tasting the dirt like beets and the climbing of the trees is a kind of that respite before you enter the world of work, but you see it going on around you. You see the clothespins going up. But it does tell us so much, if not about the speaker themselves at this young age, about the kind of community that they're being born into. And yeah, I can't tell. Oh, go ahead, go for it.
Well, I mean, it's more of a smaller observation, but it's similar. It's with the cleaning products, like they're so heavy and intense, and their purpose is to destroy all forms of bacteria, 99.9%. But like right after she's saying, I'm this, I'm that, she's like, I'm also dirt, behind that, I am the dirt under the soil. And then actually, I feel like from that, I mean, in my head, just kind of briefly, I'm playing around. It's like the very first two lines are like, I'm close things, I'm hung up, I can hang things neatly, and I can clean things. Not I can, but it's like there's a personification of getting things, wiping away the bad, the dirt stuff, putting up the stuff, organization, and then right after the dirt stuff, there's a different, there's a beautiful opening up of a world. Before that there wasn't much I could see really. I mean, I like the clothespins, but the Clorox and the carbon dioxide, so the imagery was nothing for me. But then the dirt on the black porch and the tree just opened up the gate to her garden or something for me, for him or her garden.
Yes, I agree. There's something anesthetic about those first things, and then you have that line, "I'm from the dirt," which is almost like a despite it all, like despite all the attempts,
doesn't work.
It doesn't. I'm still from the dirt of this place. I love that. So we've already learned so much about this speaker. We've learned that they toggle somehow between childhood and adulthood. Maybe this is an adult looking back at a childhood experience. Maybe they're truly inhabiting that child experience in some way. We know that they come from a community of work, perhaps poverty. I see a kind of country kind of upbringing as well, something close to nature, something that has been lost. We already know so much just given this refrain, "I'm from," right? We can tell who this speaker is. Let's move to the second stanza now. So the first stanza we've looked at very closely, clothespins, dirt, and then the long lost Dutch elm. What can we tell about the speaker from the second stanza? What kind of things are in this "I'm from" list? What do they tell us about the speaker?
I wondered, were they religious? He restoreth my soul, and the 10 verses of the Bible or of some, psalm or something. I think Miriam said something about the names, Imogen and Alafair. Is that a name, Alafair? I've never heard of it.
I was just looking up, and the name, I think the names of two women on here. You can say more because I just googled it there, but they're people. They're very specific people in her neighborhood, and they're working women, I think. I'm not sure. That's all I know. I'd like to hear more.
Yeah, I read it the same way. I don't read it as people we're supposed to know. I read it as people that the speaker knows so intimately that they don't require exposition or epithet. They're just Imogen and Alafair. And I think Miriam was the one who pointed out that these are older names, so it signals an era.
Yeah.
And also, I loved Miriam's point, the I'm from, we're getting a little bit more familiar now. We've moved from I am from clothespins. We're getting even more familiar.
Yeah, like less formal.
Mm-hmm. So we're getting, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, to continue with that thinking, the next stanza, I'm from Artemis and Billy's Branch. Apparently, I had no idea, so I looked. Apparently, those are small towns in Kentucky. So she's actually giving us now, she's moving from, I guess, more just general items and stuff. And she actually then, I think there she's giving us kind of a locator, like where on the map I'm from, if I'm getting that right. I'm not sure.
I agree with you. I'm starting to now see this as a poem that started here and is growing out. We start out under the porch, we start out under the porch and in the house. And, what I see clothespins and things going up over the line. I see a yard with trees in it. And then from there, it kind of moves outward and it talks a little bit more about relationships. I see a child at a church. I see neighbors. I see, know-it-alls and pass-it-ons at a school. I see teachers. I see the community getting wider, right? And then Eretmus and Billy's Branch. I don't know how to pronounce these words.
I don't know. I'm
either.
sorry.
I was calling it Artemis for a long time too, because that's a familiar word to me, but I'm not sure.
No, you're right.
And then it goes outward a little bit further to
Fried
Kentucky,
corn and
right?
coffee.
Yeah, and things that,
Southern.
Yeah, it gets a little bit bigger. So it starts to look at all these varying communities. Oh, Anna, are you talking to us or? Oh, no, sorry. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure we weren't missing anything brilliant you were saying. Yeah, so I see this as an examination of bigger and bigger community. I think that's a great point, John. And religion is here too. Someone brought that up. He restoreth my soul. What can we tell about the speaker's relationship with religion? From that line, from the lines in the second stanza.
I'm getting Sunday school loud and clear.
Mm-hmm.
Cotton ball lamb, 10 verses I can say myself.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like not
Making a little lamb like in primary school.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like she's saying things by rote, like off pat. You can just imagine her reciting the 10 verses or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't really get any insight about, how an adult person would feel about this. This is very much, I see the lens of a child, interacting with what's given to them at Sunday school, especially that perk up and pipe down that you guys mentioned, which I would hear in a church.
Just before. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps Imogene and Alifair are the know-it-alls and pass-it-ons, eh?
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, this stanza, I talked a lot about with Alia Ahmad, who leads the other section, as we were close reading this together in preparation for leading these workshops. And we talked a lot about this stanza because Alia does not come from this community, and I do. I was like, oh yeah, I've totally made the cotton ball lamb before. Like, that's something that's so familiar to me. I get it instinctively. And she didn't. She had no idea what a cotton ball lamb would be, what it refers to. Even, the he restoreth my soul just wasn't a familiar thing. And
neither, to be honest.
What's that?
I was just kind of jumping in. Me neither. I'm with Alia, but go on.
Yeah. So for some people may see themselves in this poem, and some others may feel excluded by it. Like, this is not a childhood I'm familiar with. This is, I'm going to have to do some Googling to find out what these things really mean. And it just brought home to me how the things that are so familiar to us from our childhood, we expect everybody else to know as if it is common knowledge. When so much of what we experience it's very unique to us, to place, to time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We don't even see it sometimes, how particular it is
Yeah.
to
I think
us.
I could put in about the Stations of the Cross on Good Friday, and probably nobody here except maybe Miriam would know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like it's so vivid for me.
I think there's we all have a bias as well, maybe subconsciously, whether we like it or not. Like if she said that to me, it kind of goes over my head because I couldn't care less about what she said there. But it's important, to her and to people have their own life and to kind
Yeah.
of see it all equally and uniquely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to save a lot of time for writing. I want to land on just one or two more questions. We were talking earlier about images of loss in this poem. We've talked about the widening community and how, relationships and environment and nature and, place all inform our identity, but we haven't really talked about loss because loss really informs identity largely, I think, in this poem. I'm wondering what loss does here. What do you think loss is doing in this poem?
I think it's not a positive type of loss, but a constructive kind of loss. Personally.
What do you think it's constructing?
Like her own, new identity. Like this was all, she lost all this before she budded, and therefore it's not an ending, it's continuous. We don't know where that leaf flew to after it fell. But
I'd like to, oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I get something slightly different, which is not so much loss as, to me, the poem is the writer's version of the box under the bed. It's a collection of memories of aspects of her childhood. So it's lost in the sense that we can't go back to childhood, but on the other hand, where we're from, any of us, is what we're made of, and so it's always with us. It's always, how does she put it? It's the sift of lost faces to drift beneath the dreams, that our dreams aren't, it's what you said earlier in the intro, Julia, that we don't bud, any of us, in a vacuum. We come from the soil that we grow from. We are in conversation with wherever we come from.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I'm getting lost in the sense of a division or a separation.
That's so beautifully said, Kate. And I love too how you've now, for me, now I see the poem as circular or cyclical, that this leaf falling from the family tree becomes that dirt that tastes like beets. Reminds me of the MC Escher hands.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Compost.
Yes, the compost heap of ourselves. And then very last question.
Can I add one thing?
Please.
Sorry, no, just because it's directly related to Lost. I just get this overall sense from the whole circular relationship that you just alluded to, and the way the poem kind of circles back. I mean, when it kind of, there's a loss that comes through the entire poem. Just speaks to like when you're telling someone where you're from, or if you're trying to summarize your background, this seems so much about lack
Mm.
She speaks to like a lack of hope. I don't know. It just kind of comes through for me. What I get from this is sadness, just loss of like no hope. Like, I don't know. So anyway, yeah.
Where do you see that? I agree with you that there's an intense
Yeah.
sadness here. Where do you see it?
The entire poem it culminates in the last line for me. I am from those moments, snap before I budded, leaf fall from the family tree. It seems like destiny was loss. That's what's conveyed for me. Like
Destiny is lost.
that's what she conveys for me through the whole thing. And it summarized beautifully. That the sentiment is summarized for me in that last line. It just seems like no hope. And that's so hard for me. That's so hard. And yeah, it's unfortunately it's reality for a lot of people to feel this way at some point or another. So that's really hard.
Does anyone else see that hopelessness here or see something different? Go for it, Kate.
Well, I've spoken a lot. Maybe I'll just wait and see if somebody else has something else to say.
I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, me too.
It's very interesting John, to hear that strong take from you. I think I'm hearing snapped before I budded in the end means to me that these are formative experiences for me, and from them I bud, but not necessarily for me. Leaf fall, we all fall from the tree. We can't stay attached for our whole lives. And so I think for me, the details that are accumulated before that last verse don't speak to me of loss, or there is injury, there's damage, but it seems taken in stride, the way a child takes in stride. Oh, my grandfather doesn't have a finger, or my father shut his eye. But fried corn and strong coffee sound delicious. And the know-it-alls and the pass-it-ons has a sense of humor to it. I'm not getting that in this poem, for example, that this narrator was beaten with a strap in order to be instructed to perk up and pipe down. It seems in a context. What I get from the first verse with that Clorox and carbon tetrachloride and the dirt that tastes like beets, it tastes sweet, but it's chemical poison. It's not, it's toxic. So what I'm getting, I get that the danger is something that is intruding from the outside, from the larger world, and that there's a sense almost of there's an old world or protected small town or country feeling here that feels a bit, I get the opposite. I get comfort somehow from this, that this narrator is very grounded in where she comes from. And she fell from the family tree because we all do, or maybe she went a different direction, but I'm not getting that kind of, I get nostalgia maybe, but I'm just not sure what word you use. You didn't use grief, but a lot of sadness or something. I'm not sure I get that from it. So interesting to have such different takes.
Interesting.
I love that the conversation naturally went where my last question was going to take it, which was, how do you think the speaker feels about where they're from? And now we have two very different opinions. One is, that the speaker feels comfort in this space, and another that the speaker feels a sadness or a hopelessness. And I think that there's space for both here, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about the sadness and about potential hopelessness here. Where does anybody, John included, or anybody else, what are your thoughts on where we see any sadness or hopelessness here? And I'm looking for particular details, particular examples.
I think she's writing with a fondness for some of it. I mean, it's sometimes a little, like it's different from, do you remember the other poem, Sunday Morning, that we looked at, where it was harsh and austere and cold, even though there was love. I mean, there's love here, and there's community, and there is a sense of fun, but we don't know. Maybe the father was a little bit strict, or the church was a big factor. I think that for me, and it all comes together in the last line, where she's able to look back and see all this, some of which, she was able to take the good and leave the stuff that didn't serve her. She mightn't be religious anymore. She's kind of snapped from the family tree, but maybe not in a lost way. She may just have moved on and got strength from all of this. I mean, even her neighbors have informed her who she is, and maybe she's moved on, and she's got she's got strength and wisdom from it all.
I agree. I like that a lot. It's almost like these are the things that I carry. These are the things that I choose to bring with me. I like that a lot. John, you used a great word in the chat. You said, I hear resignation. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, maybe that kind of just struck me. I was going back and forth with Miriam there in the chat as well about her use of the word wistful. And that really touched on something for me, because I was trying to get to the sadness, resignation or acceptance, really kind of are what I'm feeling. Like, when we, so hard not to generalize. So thinking about scene of address and who we are and where we're from, I seriously doubt that any one of us could sit here and say that like everything was wonderful or everything was awful, like despite whatever background we come from. So Julia, to your point, maybe, there is always room for both. And I think that depending on who we are, we look at, or depending on the context, or depending on a billion different things, right? We look at glass half full, glass half empty, whatever. But I don't know, the sense of feel that is conveyed to me through her words and through her descriptions. There are things that are looked fondly back on. There are realities, however, that I feel are carried, born, accepted as, yeah, I'm from these moments, like good or bad, happy or sad, this is what I bring. Not like a zest for life, like, where I'm from? I'm from Kentucky, man. We had strong coffee and corn and mama's apple pie and checkered tablecloths and bright sunshine. No, I mean, there's a little of that, but there's a lot of black soot that tasted like beets. And so I don't know. Again, I'm not right, I'm not wrong. I'm here, I'm me, and my feel is resignation, acceptance, and strength, right? Vulnerability. This is my path, and this is where I am present with this journey behind me, or as part of this journey. So
That's
I've
great, John.
spoken too much, sorry.
No, I loved it. And it's really making the word that's coming to mind as you're talking is over. You know, it's like, this is where I come from. It's done. It's over. These are the things that I accept about who I am and the places that I come from and the relationships that I had as a kid. I can't change the past. Like, this is it. This is what I've got, for better or for worse. Like, I'm not proud of it. I mean, there are parts that are great, but like, this is it. This is where I'm from, which is also a counterpoint to something we were talking earlier, which is these are the things that I choose to take with me, right? So those two things seem to be in opposition. Oh, it's just done. I'm, this is my past. I can't really change it. This is just who I am. And then we have that other sentiment that coexists with that same sentiment in this poem, which is, these are the pictures that I pull out and I remember and that I spend time with, So there is, I think, space here for a little wiggle room here for that forward movement of these are the things I take with me, at the same time that you cannot change these elements of your past. And
do you notice something that's like super lacking though?
What?
Like, you just made me realize it with what you're saying. Like, she's not looking forward to anything. She's not telling you about what, yes, this is where I'm from, but like, where am I going? I wonder what anyone would think about, like, where this is where I'm from, but like, what am I?
But we have my dreams here.
Yeah. Does Catalina want to say something, or?
Yeah.
I was just thinking about where I'm going, but this all past and all lost faces are linked with my dreams. So my dreams are something from the future in a way, I think. And in a way, what's interesting, I was looking at the title of the poem and at the end, like, where am I from? I think this was said earlier. A leaf fall from the family tree, which I think underlies exactly this idea of, as you said, taking some parts and being like a matter of identity. So this is what made me what I am. I remember I think you know the narrative approach, the Tree of Life, which is exactly telling you the fact that places, people from your past are making you what you are. I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think my dreams is something which is about the future. I don't know. But,
yeah, and we don't really have a lot of that here. Oh, I see what you're saying, Catalina. I just caught up with you. A sift of lost faces to drift beneath my dreams. The dreams is the forward looking, or the potential for things to change. But always underneath the future, you have the past kind of sifting like ghosts. I'm following, I'm picking up what you're laying down now. Beautiful. Yeah, so even though I think John is right that this is a poem that's fixated on the past, there are a couple of just glimpses of how the past may morph into a future in the discussion of dreams, and also in that feeling that these are the things that I take with me. Even just remembering the past is a constructive thing. It's not a passive process, right? It's like choosing what to remember, even if that choice feels so automatic that it feels like just observation. Judith Butler would say that there's no such thing as pure observation. There's always some amount of reactivity involved, right? Yeah, I think this conversation so aptly leads us to a discussion of our own identities as not just a mix of, what our dreams are and where we're headed, but are really informed largely by how we grew up, what resources we had, what our parents did, what we watched, what we saw them lose. You know, there's so much here that inspires me to wonder about not who I want to be and where I'm going, but how much of what I have or how much of how I see the world is informed by my home, my own scene of address. So maybe let's jump right into our own scenes of address right now. Let's pull out some paper and pen. And I'm going to set a timer today for a little longer. We're going to go for 8 minutes today. And we're going to respond to the prompt, where are you from? Go for it whenever you're ready. Oops. All right, friends, finish up your last sentence or idea. All right, we're gonna jump right into breakout rooms because I want us to have plenty of time to talk about this, a good 15 minutes. So I'm gonna assign some manually. Oop. How many people do we have here? We got 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, and I'll put myself in 1, 2. Be selfish today and get to participate because I need it today. So we're gonna do 4 breakout rooms. And I'm just gonna do an automatic. Well, actually, you know what? Anna and Catherine, maybe I'll just join you guys because you guys, I know you always get kind of stuck working together. Not that that's a bad thing. I know you guys like working together. So let me assign them manually. Okay. Great. And oh, nope, never mind. We're going to do Anna and Catalina are going to be together. John and Kate are going to be together. Anna and Catherine and Miriam are going to be together. And I'm just going to hop in wherever I can. Cool? All right.
You're the boss.
Woohoo.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll let you guys know when to switch. Set timer for 7 minutes.
7 minutes, starting now.
Hey friends, welcome back. So I know we're at 2:30. I'll keep the last question pretty short, but I'd love to hear from everybody here. Just a sentence or two, you can say it out loud. What you learned about your come from, or what Butler calls your scene of address. What did you learn about your come from, or what Butler calls your scene of address?
Are we all going? Because if we're all going, I'll start.
Perfect.
The process that we just engaged in taught me that my come from is a very, very long look back at a journey that continues.
Beautiful, John. Thank you so much.
Are we learning from our own or
Mhm.
with each other, or is it just our own experience of writing it?
However you want to look at it, I'm just curious what you've learned about your own perspective, or what you've learned about where you come from, based on whether or not you talked about it with your partner, or you wrote about it, or you learned it from the close reading, whatever it is. Go for it,
Yeah,
John.
sorry. I'm sorry. I want to just quantify or qualify. I did not speak at all about what I learned about Kate. And so if we were meant to do that, then I would totally, I have a lot to say, but
Oh,
she gave me some really great feedback about what I wrote. And then the process of writing taught me that I didn't know that that's where I consider coming from. Like I look way back. So
yeah.
and Kate, thank you. It was great to speak to you and get to learn about you too.
I find it really interesting, John, that you said too, it's not just a very long look back, it's a very long look back at a journey that is still continuing, that I guess what Catalina was mentioning, the dreams part of the poem are there for you too. There's a journey that's moving forward for you here too. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Anna, did you want to go next? Yeah, perfect.
I can go next anyway, but yeah, I mean, on the similar lines, I mean, I was writing, and I mean, obviously 8 minutes, you want to write everything, especially, I don't know, I feel like I would love to just write everything that fits in bric-a-brac of what I am, but I think I kind of want to say, I'm not sure if it's saying about me, but it's just what interested me in the group I was in with Miriam and Catherine, my mom, sorry, and they're from a similar generation, a similar background in terms of, age and upbringing and things. And then here I am, probably a generation younger or next, and kind of still in my steps up. They would have mentioned my age in their upbringing, but I'm at the very end of, well, not end, like at the edge of next for me and the edge of the future for me. So I'm still continuing, and it's interesting because I think I was mentioning like, everything that has happened and has accumulated with me is important and woven in to me, but I continue to do it now on my own. And I guess I was looking ahead a little bit while looking back, but then Miriam and Catherine beautifully wrote a lot about where they're from. It was nearly complete, but I think that was maybe the way they were saying it and stuff. But I was just saying, maybe it's a certain age where that's all you want to do and look back maybe with your, I don't know, it's hard to explain without limiting the meaning of Miriam and Mum. But
it was an interesting group because I suppose we're all Irish, and where Miriam and I are, we realized that we were coming from a different perspective than Anna, for example, who's 21 and has everything ahead of her. So she was able to kind of weave, she's weaving her tapestry still, like she's kind of got all the bits that accumulated, but she's continuing to weave it herself on now further. Whereas I, as I said to Miriam, I don't have a whole lot left that I have to do in my life. Like my life, I'm very happy where I am, and I can now see, like my last line was, I didn't know that this wasn't the perfect childhood until much later. Do you know what I mean? But it was the best it could be given the context. So I'm definitely in a position where at the time, and even when I was 21, I didn't have a clue. I was kind of lost. I didn't have the awareness that Anna has, and I couldn't see still just the effect that my childhood had on me.
Yeah.
So, but now at 55, I can, So it's a different, it's perspective. It's about perspective.
That was the word that came to mind immediately, was the difference of perspective, of having, enough time to really look back and see. And that line, I didn't know this wasn't the perfect childhood until much later, really resonates with me. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. Miriam, what about
exercise? Really nice.
Oh, good, great.
Lovely to be with Miriam as well. Beautiful piece she wrote.
What did you learn from writing it, Miriam?
I suppose I would have, for the most part, very fond memories of where I'm from, and both of my parents unfortunately have died. So, and I don't live in my home place. So it reminded me actually of what warm feelings I have for my home place and my growing up. Yeah, not perfect, but it was its time. It was its time. So it'd be warm feelings and a lot of humor. Actually,
love it. I'll insert myself here, because I'm going to echo what you said. That was my experience too. I'm very embarrassed of where I come from, because I come from the deep South in Alabama, which has, a lot of social and cultural and political. I don't agree with a lot of where I come from. So I'm really reticent to even talk about it to people, and writing about it gave me a lot of warm feelings too, and made me realize I have a lot of love for this place. And there a lot of who I am, that the parts of me that I love come from that place too. So sometimes you got to remind yourself, and maybe there's a politics of love to be found here too. I was thinking a lot about that. Anyway, thank you so much for putting that in words for me, Miriam. Anyone want to go next? Anna, Catalina, Kate?
Sure. I'll go next. So from where I come from, what kind of was reflecting on the process, and also for context, I've been doing some work on this myself lately, just kind of looking at where I come from and where I come from. So I'm an immigrant to Canada, and I was born in England and christened in Austria. So I come from many places, and it's like kind of straddling different cultures and I come from straddling different like class expectations in different countries, and also in Canada, and the different ways class is in different places and how that shapes our values. And also different like social economic status, like my immediate family different from my extended family. So straddling those, and just like my experiences as an immigrant. So when I was writing, I kind of went from starting in England and Austria, and then a bit more in England, then moving to Canada, but also a lot in the relationships and how my family, like my immediate and my extended family, related to the move and being in Canada and being separated and all that.
That reminds me so much of the quote from George Lyon that we started out with about the spider web, and how there's just this interconnectedness of all of these things that seem to straddle, there's no real way to discreetly define something. It's a web of all of these different influences and values, and especially, between, different class expectations and immigrant expectations and experiences, all contributing to this web of experience. Thank you so much.
I think I can go next. Thank you, Anna, for your feedback because she told me at some point that my story was full of relationships in there. And what I realized now, thinking about what is value, valuable. I think for me, it's more precious the dust from the countryside where I was growing up by my grandmother than all the, I don't know, the modern things and everything. That simple thing, it's the most precious for me.
The dust.
And the people, yeah. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, Catalina. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate, do you want to say something?
Sure. Similar to Anna, I don't have a singular place I'm from, because I moved so much as a kid and all over the world. And so I think one sense I got about my come from, especially working with John, who had such a different perspective, is my come from that came out on the page was very sense oriented, things that I could smell and touch and taste. And I think it has, I mean, there were references to the places that I lived and their histories and my parents' histories. My parents came from very different socioeconomic backgrounds, but I never know what to say when somebody says, "Where are you from?" I have no idea how to answer that question. So I'm from nowhere, and I'm from everywhere in a sense. But it was interesting to see that what came on the page was so much about, I think it takes me back to a child stage, just what I can know from my senses, because I don't understand. There's too much change otherwise, that I don't have a long view.
That really explains a lot for me about how to read the poem itself, or why the poem has that kind of that childlike mentality where you can't really tell if we're looking at it from the adult or a child's perspective, because maybe that poet is doing the same thing, you know, really channeling that child's embodied experience, because what else do you have to hold on to? And I really like too how in your sensory way of identifying with the world, that the body itself becomes a kind of home. When so much else is transient and changing, you know, you rely on the body and it's that sensory information to become to become your come from, to become your home in a way. I think that's really beautiful. Thank you guys so much all for sharing your come froms, your homes, all of these things that seem like background noise to us, I think turn into a kaleidoscope of different worlds when you get to share them with a group and you get to see all these different perspectives. Thank you so much for sharing your worlds with us today. Stick around if you want to talk. Otherwise, I'd love to see you all next month. Please let your friends know about this group. I'm trying to help Alia grow her group too. And if you have colleagues or friends that you want to send a little something to, let me know and I can send you something to send to them. We'd love to help grow her family too. Otherwise, I'll see you all next month. Love to you all. And stick around if you want to hang out for a little while. Otherwise, see you soon.
Thank you,
very
everyone.
much. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you all. Be well, Julia.